The Odyssey is directed by Christopher Nolan, and despite already having one of the strongest filmographies in Hollywood, I honestly think this might be his best film yet. And that's obviously a bold statement, but after sitting with it for a while, I genuinely think that it deserves to be in that conversation. There's just so much that this film gets right. The performances across the board are excellent, and I think this may be some of the best work I've seen from several members of the cast. Anne Hathaway is she stole every scene that she was in, delivering a performance that I found both emotionally grounded and incredibly powerful. Robert Pattinson also stood out as a character that I absolutely love to hate. He's charismatic, manipulative, and somehow manages to be entertaining even when you can't stand him. And when I reflect on the film, honestly, I don't think there was a bad performance in the entire movie. Visually, this movie is stunning. Nolan became the first filmmaker to shoot an entire feature in IMAX, and it absolutely pays off here. Whether it's the massive landscapes, violent oceans, or the incredible sense of scale throughout, everything feels impactful in the best possible way. If you have the opportunity to watch this in 70mm IMAX, I genuinely think that that's the way this movie should be experienced. It's one of those films that constantly reminds you why going to the theater can be such a special experience, and it doesn't hold back in its spectacle. What surprised me most, though, was how much the story resonated with me. Beneath all the mythology and spectacle, it's a story about humanity itself. Throughout the film, Nolan seems interested in exploring what holds civilizations together and how trust, honor, and the way we treat others can shape the world around us. It's an ancient idea, yet one that feels remarkably relevant today. Another surprise was just how much the film embraces horror. I expected an epic adventure, but there are several moments that genuinely made me uneasy. And I'm looking at the scenes with Circe specifically, and if you've seen the film, you already know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Nolan presents many of the mythological elements as encounters with things beyond human understanding. The creatures, environments, and sound design create constant tension, and making Odysseus' journey feel dangerous from beginning all the way to the end. But even with all that dread, the film never forgets to be epic. Every set piece feels massive, every location is breathtaking, and Nolan once again delivers the kind of spectacle that has become synonymous with his films. From a technical standpoint, this is one of the best looking films I've seen in quite some time. The cinematography is incredible, the score is phenomenal, and the practical effects continue to remind me why Nolan remains one of the few directors willing to push filmmaking on this kind of scale. Now, with almost any film pushing the 3-hour mark, you're inevitably going to hear people bring up the pacing. Thankfully, that wasn't much of an issue for me. The film definitely starts at a slower pace, but it gradually builds momentum as Odysseus' journey unfolds. I never found myself stuck in a stretch where I was completely disengaged for very long. Admittedly, the opening spends a fair amount of time getting the audience up to speed, and I think that's necessary given the scope of the story and everything the film has to establish. Whether the pacing works for you will ultimately come down to your personal preference, but I understood why the film needed the time that it did. In fact, I honestly wouldn't have minded if it had been even longer, if those extra minutes had been used to further explore the supernatural side of the Greek mythology and some of Odysseus' encounters along the way. I would have happily sat through another 30 minutes or so. Now, I know some people online have already started criticizing the film for its historical inaccuracies, particularly the armor. Personally, I think we're focusing on the wrong thing here. This is a story filled with a giant Cyclops, gods, witches, sirens, magic, and curses. If I'm willing to accept all of that, I'm certainly not going to get hung up on whether someone's helmet or breastplate is historically accurate. For me, what matters is whether the world feels cohesive and believable within its own mythology, and I think that Nolan absolutely nails that. That being said, I don't think the film is perfect. One thing that disappointed me was how underutilized some of the supporting cast felt. Nolan assembled an incredible group of actors, but not everyone is given enough to really make an impact. There were several moments where I'd recognize an actor or an actress, and I was excited to see, only for them to disappear before the film gave them much to do. It's not that anyone gives a bad performance, they simply aren't given enough material to leave a lasting impression. But by far, my biggest criticism, though, has to be the action. To be fair, the Odyssey has never been a story that primarily is about combat, it's about survival, perseverance, and Odysseus using his wit. Still, whenever the film builds toward larger action sequences, I found myself wanting a little bit more. Much with Nolan films, the way he depicts action has always leaned toward frantic editing and chaos over clean choreography, and I think that holds true here as well. The scale is undeniably impressive, but there were a few moments where I wish the action was depicted more clearly. Even then, those issues never took me out of the experience. There are a few slower stretches throughout the film, but I never found myself bored because there was always something interesting happening, whether it was the performances, the visuals, or simply the atmosphere Nolan creates. Overall, I absolutely enjoyed this interpretation of the Odyssey. It's visually spectacular, emotionally engaging, and packed with some memorable performances. More importantly, it's one of those films that I immediately wanted to watch again the moment it ended. I have no doubt there will be details, themes, and visual storytelling that I'll appreciate even more on the second or third viewing. For me, this isn't just another great Christopher Nolan film. It might actually be his masterpiece.